Again, I'd like to welcome everyone to the 179th Street Access Management Circulation Plan and Intersection Improvements at 29th Avenue Open House. So we'll be repetitive a little bit, but some key items. The meeting is recorded. We will not be recording cameras or chats, but the presentation and the audio will be recorded. We'll post the recorded presentation on our project website in the next couple of days. And then this time we will have a shorter presentation, so there will be a lot more time for question and answer session. We do have the virtual hand option. Click on the participant list to find your name. Might need to hover a little bit, but you should be able to find the hand symbol, and raise your virtual hand, or find the reaction button located in the lower right hand corner of your screen. Might need to scroll a little bit to find it, but you can raise your hand using that option as well. Those who've joined over the phone can press *3 to raise their virtual hand. We do also have a chat feature that is enabled. I see that many have already started using it. We will do our best to answer those questions in the chat. If they are left unanswered, then we'll go ahead and read them aloud during the question and answer session. We do have several Clark County Public Works team members here that are able to answer those on the chat. Again, we're considerate of everyone's time, and we will adhere to our time frame. So this second part of the presentation will start at 6, but we will end promptly at 7. Again, email addresses are provided at the end of the presentation, so you can see them on our presentation, or they will also be available on our project websites. Title VI forms and comment forms will be emailed to everyone in attendance here in the next couple of days. Those items are voluntary. And Matt will be starting our presentation again, and I will go ahead and turn this over to you. Go ahead, Matt.
Thank you, Cindy. Again, I'm going to shorten this presentation so that we have time for questions and answers, as we ran out of time in the previous session. Next slide. So the intention of this is really, again, to provide a safe and predictable transportation network that's well connected. We want to provide that well-connected network so that it's both resilient as well as it provides that efficient multimodal corridor options. Next slide. So again, the study corridor is 179th Street from Northwest 11th Avenue to Northeast 50th Avenue. This is inside the Vancouver urban growth area. It is urban zoning designations. A lot of the large lots that exist out there today have not redeveloped because an urban holding overlay has existed on those properties from 2007 till 2020. So we're really on the cusp of redevelopment of the neighborhood, and we want to make sure that we have a local transportation system that's planned, as well as a 179th Street corridor that can move people, all users, both pedestrians, bicycles, as well as the drivers, both freight and vehicle drivers. Next slide. So again, here's the history that I mentioned previously. Added in 2007 to the Vancouver UGA, and the urban holding removal was in 2020. Next slide. You can skip forward. So again, here's the existing driveways on 179th Street, shown on this map. Go ahead, next slide. Next slide. And again, all the way to 50th Avenue. So it's important to accommodate folks, as well as make sure that they have safe locations for entering and exiting 179th Street and are connected to a local street network. Next slide. The grades on 179th Street are significant, as there's several hills right now that teenagers love to drive over. We want to be able to curb that and make sure that it's a safe a stretch of road that's not as hilly and doesn't have the significant hills and valleys that currently exist. Next slide. Here's the topography from 25th Avenue to 37th Avenue. Next slide. And the BPA right away to 50th Avenue. So again, we had a question on the Q&A about environmental constraints. This was important to us as we considered the local road network. What we want to do when we plan for the local road network is that those future streets are on property lines so that the future cost of those local streets are shared by developers equally. Again, it was important for us not to impact those future streams or wetlands. So you'll see on our plans our avoidance of those wetlands north of 179th, about midway between 11th Avenue and Delphi Road. Next slide. Again, here's the environmental impacts from the interchange to 29th Avenue. You have several stream crossings, both near the interchange. Whipple Creek crosses at 179th and approximately, 19th Avenue, 20th Avenue. And then the stream close to the intersection project at 29th Avenue. Here's the stream crossings and wetlands between 29th and 50th Avenue. We have a significant stream crossing as well as some wetlands in that section. Next slide. So again, crashes at intersections are most severe and occur more often at intersections. Therefore, having that special attention for intersections is critical to provide a safe facility and safe transportation environment for all users. Here are the county capital projects. Again, Northwest 179th, all the way from Northwest 11th Avenue to Northeast 50th Avenue. Nope, go back, please. With 15th Avenue extension going to 10th Avenue, the intersection construction projects at 29th and 50th Avenue. There was a question on the chat regarding Northwest 179th Street from Northwest 11th to the interchange. When the county council removed the urban holding overlays, that was added to the CFP at that time. It did not identify the intersection types. We are identifying the intersection types on this plan, and that plan is outside of the 6-year transportation improvement program, but inside the 20-year capital facilities plan. Next slide. So here's our plan. And as you can see with the wetlands there shown, we're proposing local streets, a local street network that avoids crossing those important wetlands. These streets here are additions to the arterial atlas. They're classified as neighborhood circulators, and they're planned to be connected to 179th Street through a combination of right in, right out intersections as well as roundabouts. Please note, and I want to stress this with utmost importance, that these local streets are built by development. They are not built by Clark County. Clark County is not taking property to build these roads. When development occurs, they are a part of the conditions of development. They are a requirement for development to build these local roads. Next slide. Here is the access management and circulation plan from the interchange to 29th Avenue. Again, for the arterial atlas amendments, we want to remove the roads that will be removed as part of the interchange reconstruction project. That's the Union Road disconnection as well as 10th Avenue connection. The existing 10th Avenue connection will be tied into 179th Street through an extension of 15th Avenue. Here it's shown as a realignment in blue with the old section in the arterial atlas removed. Again, you're seeing the roundabouts at 12th Avenue, roundabouts at 15th Avenue, and then the emergency access locations only. And again, those emergency access locations are only switched to, they're currently, they have interim access, but they are switched to emergency access only when the local road network is connected to them. And 179th Street is built to its full cross section. A roundabout is proposed at 22nd Avenue. This is at the top of a significant hill there that provides the greatest sight distance. We want to remove a future neighborhood circulator that crosses a wetland, shift it north to the property line so that it avoids impact to that wetland. Next slide. Here's the plan from 29th Avenue to 50th Avenue. Again, you're seeing the roundabouts as the red circles, right in, right out as blue, and the emergency access locations as the orange and black triangles. We want to add a neighborhood circulator that connects at approximately 35th Avenue, 33rd Avenue, which is just to the east of 29th Avenue, connecting to a future neighborhood circulator running east-west. We want to connect 174th Street, which is south of 179th Street, to 179th Street through a future collector that will tie it into 179th Street with a roundabout. You can also see on this map that we want to avoid east-west roads that cross those roundabouts, or I'm sorry, that cross those wetlands. There's kind of a peninsula there about 37th Avenue that's surrounded by wetlands. So the local road network that ties into this future neighborhood circulator will serve future development in that location and avoid disturbance of those wetlands. We are also proposing neighborhood circulators to be located in between 174th Street and 179th Street that will access 179th Street through an additional roundabout at approximately 45th Avenue. Next slide. In addition to the vehicle system, we also are proposing walkability connectivity through neighborhoods. Those are shown in a very light pink. It's kind of hard to see on these slides, but approximately the fairgrounds entrance and over to the east, there's a trail system there that we want to connect the neighborhood to the roundabout. So providing safe passages for pedestrians is crucial, as well as making sure pedestrians can access 179th Street through the commercial zoning districts north and south of 179th between Northeast 2nd Avenue and Northeast Delphi Road. Next slide. Again, here's the proposal with the wildlife corridors shown where the current streams are located. Next slide. And again, the same between 29th and 50th Avenue. Again, Planning Commission hearing is scheduled for February 17th. It's open to the public, free to comment, free to testify during that hearing, and have the Planning Commission consider your comments in their recommendation process. Their recommendation will then be forwarded to Clark County Council on March 15th. That's a Tuesday evening. And Clark County Council will then evaluate both the DEEB recommendation and the Planning Commission recommendation, as well as residents' comments, concerns, and make their decision on that. It's the end of mine. With that said, shifted over to Scott Sawyer, who's the project manager for the 179th Street, 50th Avenue intersection improvement project.
Thank you, Matt. And for those of you who are just joining us, welcome. I hope you're having a good evening. For those of you who have stuck with us through that first hour and you're hearing this again and you're wondering, well, why are we going through this again? It's because we wanted to break this up into two different open houses so that those people that are more interested in Northeast 29th Avenue could have some time, and those that are interested in Northeast 50th Avenue intersection could have time. We apologize for how long the first one took. I promise you this second one at Northeast 50th will go quicker, and so we'll have some more opportunities to maybe answer some questions and talk. But I'm gonna go ahead and jump in there. As we talked about during the first hour, some of you may be wondering, well, why did we start with an open house this last fall, then all of a sudden cancel it? And the reason why is the decision was made, we had some new leadership, and the decision was made that we want to put the brakes on things and take a step back and take a bigger holistic view of the corridor rather than just rushing in and just focusing on the intersection of 29th and the intersection of 50th. As I talked about during that first hour, some of the key things we wanted to look at is the construction sequencing. We do have the interchange, which is in yellow on this picture here, that will be the Washington State Department of Transportation will be moving forward with that construction. And so it's important that we make sure that we're sequencing the other construction projects so that it works well with that project. So we're not just closing everything down at the same time. I just wanted to, and also in addition to that, we want to make sure that we can have a detour sequencing plan that allows everybody to be able to get home to their properties at all times as well. And then also look at funding and how we're going to fund this so that we make sure that that's in place. Starting on the left there, what you see in red, that's the Delphi Road realignment. That's necessary to realign the north leg to line up with the south leg. As the interchange occurs, they're going to be doing improvements with their on and off ramps on both the east and west side. And so that's going to trigger the need to push that Delphi Road on the north leg further to the west on the other side of the chevron to connect in with the south leg. And then on the east side of the intersection, the improvements that are proposed for the intersection will eliminate that connection of Northeast 10th Avenue to 179th in order to connect up the on and off ramps at an intersection. And so what we'll be doing is extending Northeast 15th Avenue, which you see there in kind of light green, up and over to connect into Northeast 10th Avenue. So if you're used to now coming off the freeway and going north and just continuing on Northeast 10th, what you will have to do in the future is you will have to turn east, right or east onto Northeast 179th Street to 15th Avenue and then go north, and then you'll connect back up with Northeast 10th Avenue. That purple section is the portion of 179th that's in between the interchange work and the work that's going to be happening at 15th Avenue. And then we are going to be focusing on the section from 15th Avenue to 29th Avenue, which is the project that's identified in blue. And then as we talked about this last hour, I think you're up to speed on the roundabout that will be incorporated at 29th. And what we're going to talk about here just very quickly over at Northeast 179th and 50th is our plan for that. So if we can go to the next slide. Just quick, I just wanted to quick point out to where the intersection is. I think we all are pretty much aware of it. It's about 2 miles east of the interstate. Currently, it's an all-way stop conditions. I think next slide, if I can. When we started the project, and we were heading this last fall towards the open houses, our plan at that time was to incorporate a multi-lane but single lane striped roundabout similar to what we were focusing on at Northeast 29th Avenue. As we took that step back and we looked at the big picture, the decision was made to delay the incorporation of this roundabout at this location. Eventually, it will need to go in, but if we go to the next slide, what our traffic engineers determine is that by adding a left turn channelization, so left turn lanes on the east and west leg of 179th, where the intersection is at 50th, that is anticipated based on their modeling to operate at an acceptable level of service well into 2035. And so the decision was made that rather than spending a considerable amount of money putting in a roundabout at this time, the money would maybe better well spent moving that closer to the interchange and focusing on Northeast 179th Street over on the west over there. So what our plan is for this is to move forward with adding asphalt over on the shoulders, as you can kind of see in pink, and then restriping so that you have a dedicated left turn pocket on the east and west side. It will remain an all-way stop. And like I say, that is anticipated to meet the needs well into 2035, at which time then we will need to move forward with that multi-lane roundabout that I showed in the previous slide. Next slide, please. This kind of re-indicates that the need for at least those east and west leg intersection improvements is to meet the traffic volumes that are anticipated in the future with both the residential and commercial growth. As I mentioned, that the traffic studies show that we will be able to last until about well into 2035. And the other thing is, as you probably anticipate, since we're only really focusing on the outside of the existing travel lanes, we anticipate that traffic will stay open at all times during that construction. So we won't have to close that down, or there may be times where there may be a flagger or something, depending upon the type of equipment, that type of thing. But next slide, please. This is just a reiteration of what you saw in the last hour. As far as the detour route, while this is likely under construction, Northeast 179th Street and 29th Avenue will be closed. And so we will see detour going up 10th over 199th Street and then down 50th. But as I mentioned, we will have that intersection open at all times during construction. So that should be able to function okay. Next slide, please. Funding for this one is pretty simple. We're using county road funds since it's a fairly small project. In the future, as we get into the roundabout, at that time, then we'll be looking for other funding sources, including federal dollars and also traffic impact fees from the development committee, that type of thing. Next slide, please. As far as the project schedule, we hope to start the acquisition process because there are going to be pieces of property we will need to make this work. Hope to start in December of 2022 and wrap that up by December of 2023. We will have some permitting. There is some wetlands, small amount of wetlands that we will be impacting, and that will take from July of this year through October of next year. And then we hope to open bids in the spring of 2024 and then anticipate starting construction in the summer of 2024. And then, as you would probably expect, it's not going to be a very long construction. It should be wrapping up in the fall of 2024. Next slide. And then again, as I mentioned during our last presentation in the last hour, this is my contact information. This is the email address that we've created for the entire 179th Street project corridor. You're always welcome to send us emails. And we'll try to get back to you just as soon as we possibly can. We're also creating a website. We have one for Northeast 29th, and we also going to have one here for Northeast 50th Avenue, just to kind of keep you in the loop on what's going on. You can see the address there. And then finally, we always have publicworks.cservice@clark.wa.gov. You can contact as well for information. So with that, I told you it wouldn't be very long, much better than that first hour. Sorry about that. I think we're ready to take some questions. Cindy, if you want to, if there were some questions, I'm sure there were some questions.
there were several questions. I'm going to go ahead and let anyone who has a question raise their virtual hand, and we'll start off with those. And oh, thank you. We have that slide showing how to raise your virtual hand if you would like to ask a question out loud. I know that there were several people who were worried that they weren't able to ask a question, so this is your opportunity. All right, Sue, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. So I had typed in several questions, but one of them relates to SEPA. So I understand this is just the plan, and there's a DNS for the SEPA. But overall, will this be considered? Is this going to be piece by piece? Is there a way to consider this the cumulative impacts, and how will the community be noticed about the SEPA going forward? And I guess, you know, given the amount of earth that is going to be moved, it seems like this could well trigger an impact statement.
One thing I do want to share with you, and unfortunately we don't have our environmental consultant with us at this point. We are going to be working moving forward with that process, as you mentioned. Boy, and to be honest with you, I'm not really an expert in this, so I don't know that I should be responding to it. I don't know if there's someone else here that can talk about that more effectively. As you mentioned, I know for 50th Avenue project, it's going to be a SEPA rather than an EIS or DNIS. But I'm not. Does anyone else have the experience to be able to respond to this? If not, what we can do is we can get back to you, get the appropriate person to respond to you via email or call. We just need to get your contact information.
Great. Should I put that in the, do you have that because I registered, or?
Yeah, I will have that in our system. And I do also want to let you know that we do have a SEPA website, so any notices will go up there, and there's a 2-week time frame that they're posted for. I don't know exactly when those will be posted yet, but we do have a website.
And will it be piece by piece? Is there any cumulative impact that is considered?
So what I can go ahead and do is forward that information, your question, directly to our environmental specialist.
And I'm sorry I can't answer your question, but I think it's best to get the right person to respond to you than for me to try to make up an answer that I really shouldn't be making an answer for.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
Don't make anything up. Thanks.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Charlene Hurst. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm in the kitchen making dinner
sure.
as well, so sorry about that if you hear timers. A couple of questions. We have had, I think this maybe is also for the environmentalists, but they came onto our property and put down a bunch of stakes with colored ribbons like over a year ago. Those have not been removed. I'm curious about who's going to come back and clean up all of that. And I guess, you know, as projects go forward, sort of, you know, the amount of trash and things I see at some of the development sites locally here is a big concern of mine. We live right on the creek side. The creek runs through our property. It's about where that 90-foot bridge at 29th is going in. And long term, I'm worried about, you know, litter and people dumping things and all of that kind of stuff. And, you know, as new development comes in, I know that's a problem. But what kinds of things are you guys thinking about long term, sort of short term and long term, for litter and other things that people leave behind?
So Charlene, let me first start. Hopefully you received my email this morning. I apologize, it took us a little bit to get back to you on that. I have spoken with Doug Sarkinen, and his team. He indicated that his team will be coming out to take care of those stakes, and we'll get those out. Those are necessary for surveying, identifying wetlands, things of that nature. But we will be getting those off your property, not a problem. As far as the litter is concerned, I know Kaylee, are you still with me?
I am. So Charlene, I believe I emailed you as well. We have, Public Works has an Adopt a Road program, so volunteers and businesses can sign up to do litter cleanups on roadways. However, there are some roadways that aren't safe for volunteer work, or sometimes, you know, there's litter that needs to be addressed right away, and we don't have a litter cleanup scheduled in the immediate future. So that can all be reported via our website. I'll put the link in the chat when I'm done answering this question. It's clark.wa.gov/publicworks/report-park-road. You can use this form to report vandalism at parks as well as litter on roads. And generally our crews get out there to respond to litter within 1 to 2 business days. We are really short staffed right now, so our response times are a little bit longer. I can also tell you that a lot of the calls we get are for private property, and we can't go on private property. So if something has been dumped on someone's private property, it's outside of the right-of-way of the road, we can't respond. We can kind of work with the property owner to get that cleaned up. And also the areas right around I-5 and the on and off ramps, that is going to be the Washington State Department of Transportation. So if anyone has concerns specific to the areas around the freeway and litter and dumping there, please contact me. I'll try to bring up the slide that has my contact information, or I don't think we have that on there. I'll put it in the chat. And I can connect you with the Southwest Washington Regional Maintenance Coordinator for WashDOT. So we have lots of different resources for managing litter. We do use corrections crews to clean up litter throughout the county. I will say the last 2 years with the pandemic, we've been restricted and actually most of the time have been unable to use corrections crews. So that's why we're maybe a little behind on litter cleanup compared to previous years. So those are the resources that we have. And if you have further questions about that, please just give me a call or send me an email.
Scott?
Hi, thanks. My name's Scott Parrish. I live on the corner of 179th and 50th on the southeast corner there. And I have a question about the delay that's going to happen with the roundabout change. So we are the property that has the water retention, or whatever you're calling that area there, that's going to take our front pasture away. And I'm wondering, with the delay of the roundabout where you're only taking the corners of the property off, on that map, I did not see that water area listed on there. Is that going to be delayed until the roundabout is done? Thank you.
Yes, that is, yes. Thank you, Scott, for your question. Yes, that is correct. The design that we have for the interim project will not require, because we're not adding enough asphalt to trigger it, will not require retention or treatment at this point. So we will not need a retention or treatment stormwater pond until the future roundabout occurs.
Hello, can you hear me? Great. Like Charlene, I'm in the kitchen making dinner. I have two principal questions. One is that you shared that local access roads would only be built when development occurred. But I'm curious if that same thing applies to the capital projects that we're talking about. I saw Laura respond to part of it, but just for clarification, if your property is involved in one of these capital projects, such as the widening of 179th or the widening of another road, if property owners are not wanting to give up their property, what happens?
Sure. So I can answer the question.
So
Oh, go ahead, Laura.
okay, so pardon me. So Maureen, good evening. So this is a very typical question that most property owners get, and it's more of a curiosity. So it's really important to learn or to know that property owners have a lot of rights, but so does the government. And that is outlined in our Fifth Amendment as well as expanded through the 14th Amendment. So I've been buying right away for capital projects for over 20 years. I have never once used eminent domain or started the processes of condemnation. So I mean, the worst case scenario would be that we would take you to court for that, but it rarely ever happens. The only reason when something goes to court is when the county or the government has done a major misstep. And so I am the manager for the department. We do not do missteps. We do everything by the book. We will treat you with fairness. We hire an appraiser who does not work for the government so that he's got his own shingle. He or she has their own shingle. That report is then handed off to a second appraiser to make sure that the quality and the methodology is correct. You are given that report to review and analyze. You have a statutory allowance of $750 to give that report to anybody of you choosing. So most people understand the need for public property or public projects, and that they benefit from that and the community benefits from that. I do have to say that it sometimes sucks to be the property owner that has to give something up for the benefit of the community, but we compensate you for that, and we give you our best offer first. We do our due diligence to make sure that that happens. So that's kind of a long-winded thing of the process. You have a lot of rights, and I will tell you that my department fights hard to secure those rights and to make sure that you guys are protected. And I encourage anybody who has questions about the process to please call me directly. I am open at any time, and my phone number is let me see, it changed. I wrote it down somewhere. 564-397-4777. Please give me a call at any time about the process, because I know it's kind of scary. Did you have any more questions about the process, or I probably gave you more information than you wanted?
Sorry, I do have a follow-up, but I can't unmute. And my main question is that, the first that property owners heard about this was last Friday, but my understanding is that meetings have been taking place since last August. So some concern is that we have not been involved in the process. And I would like to hear from the county about how you plan to really involve property owners in this plan moving forward, and making sure that we're at the table so that we get our questions answered early and often.
Sure, thank you for that. So the plan development of the 179th Street Access Management Circulation Plan went through two groups, a stakeholder committee group as well as a technical advisory group. That stakeholder committee was made up of both, there were two neighborhood representatives. The neighborhood association was also invited to the stakeholder committee. The stakeholder committee also was composed of the public utility providers, as well as some developers were included in that as well. The intention of a stakeholder group was to inform the development of the plan. We made several refinements through both recommendations of the technical advisory committee as well as the stakeholder committee. The public period is now. We are still open to refinements. The plan can be refined, it can be amended until it is adopted. We are currently in the public outreach process right now, and any considerations are given for changes to that plan. Those recommendations can be made to the Planning Commission and then also to the County Council.
And then from a perspective of 179th and 29th and 179th and 50th, as I mentioned during my little spiel, last fall was what we did intend to start the open house process and start introducing it. As I indicated, we decided to hit the brakes and take a more holistic view and take a bigger look at things. This is the first of what we anticipate as being many open houses. Not only for this project, but for the other projects that are going to be occurring. So we don't want you to think that there have been many meetings that you've missed. We're right now about 60% design stage of the plans for at least the 179th and 29th project. And so we're at that point where we felt we're ready to share that information with you. There have been some one-on-one meetings with property owners that are directly affected. And we're going to be continuing to do those. If you are near those intersections, you will be hearing from us shortly. There are other neighbors like Mr. Tribe, for example, that we've been talking with, who will be needing to change their driveways, for example, things of that nature that we felt it was important to make contact and to really start getting them involved. But I want to assure you that we're not trying to hide anything from you. COVID has really kind of whacked things up, and we're all kind of working from home, but we're sure trying.
If I can dovetail into this a little bit, Maureen, when my department gets involved, we are really people oriented and we make a lot of outreach in our own right. So when they're designing, I'll just let you know, when they are designing when the engineers are doing their magic and they have figured out what exactly they're going to do, they hand the baton literally over to my department, and we have to talk to people. And so we're very good at that, and we will follow up. If we're going to call you or we're going to tell you, we will follow up. So I think because the project is being handed over to us, or when it does, that's when the individual property owners will know what is happening. And just kind of a broad process is that once they figure out what they're going to do, we have our surveyors, they come out and stake it. So you get to see exactly what is required and needed for it. We hire an independent appraiser who will go out there. You have the right, you don't have to be there, but you have the right to be there and walk along with the property with that. And so you come along with the journey with us. So there'll be much more dialogue now, or should be. And I want to give a shout out to Vonnie. I don't know if anybody got to see this, but she wrote in the chat, says, when my property was needed for 219th Street, the project several years ago, we were treated respectfully and with compassion. We were fairly compensated for our property without any problem. So Maureen, if you want to talk to Vonnie, I would highly encourage it. And I have never met her. So I'm proud of our department and how we handle things.
Hi. I live on the corner of 29th and 179th, so my property's going to be severely impacted by this roundabout. But I do have to say that I've been in the process of talking with both Scott and Doug Sarkinen, and to a lesser extent Laura already, regarding the impact to my property. And the interaction that I've had to date has been very good. Doug gets back to, or Scott gets back to me immediately. Doug's been to my property twice now. And so if I have any questions or need any information, it's been provided immediately over the last 2 years. And I want to thank you for that. I do have one question that I haven't gotten clearly answered yet, Scott and Doug, and that is when driveways are having to be relocated, outside the scope of the road construction, who handles that? Am I going to be given money to reconstruct my driveway myself, or is the project going to reconstruct my driveway and make me whole again? And that also, of course, pertains to my parents, which are just just east of me, as well as their driveway and also their drain field, their septic system. So could you answer that for me, Scott or Doug?
You bet. And I think this might need to be a joint answer with Laura and Doug. One of the things we do is we don't make you do the driveways. This is something that we'll include in our construction project, and we'll be having the contractor take care of that. We don't stick you with that. Laura, do you want to talk about a little bit about the drain field part of that? Because there is some portion that we want to work with you to have you take care of, because it's more appropriate that you take care of it than us.
So one of my roles for the real property services is if the we've identified a project for the public to benefit the public, and part of that is evaluating the impacts, the personal impacts that are to private properties. And so this is where my world and the engineers intersect. And for that, your driveway, so we have to make you, we cannot just cut you a new driveway. We have to give you reasonable access that's back. So we, if you have a paved driveway today, it'll be paved before. So that will be the short answer for your driveway is that will be a part of the project. Okay.
All the way up into my property, connecting to where it
For
needs
what?
to connect to.
Yeah. So whatever the project impacts, whatever it impacts, it will be reconnected.
Okay. And then as far as the drain
Okay.
field is concerned, tell me about that.
Yeah. So the drain field will be handled through the appraisal process. So we know we're going to hit it. So we will hire a soils engineer to reconfigure the septic drain or the drain field, and we will give that design. It has to go be vetted through the health department and all of the subject matter experts. And once that's been fully vetted, we give that to the appraiser, who puts that into the report. Because the thing, what the appraisal is it's like, it's easy to figure out what the cost of that strip is, if it's a 10-foot wide strip or a 20-foot strip. But the hard part about this is, what does our project do to what's left? And that's what we commonly call the remainder. And so we know we're hitting your dad's septic drain field. We will get an estimate of what that costs, and that will be reflected in the appraisal. And that's what is under a line item called cost to cure. There's a problem, and this is what the dollar amounts to fix this. And yes, we put in sales tax, and yes, we put in contingencies, and yes, that's in there. And so we pay the property owner to fix the problem, because honestly, we are really good at building bridges. We're really good at building roads. We're not that good at building septic drain fields, because we don't do it. So it's just, and people have a better oversight on their own property and about their own personal things that they need to take care of. I hope that answered your question.
It answers my question, but that's not the answer that I wanted. You know, my parents are 87 years old. They don't want to navigate through a drain field repair and replacement. They're not even probably capable of it.
Okay.
So they have a drain field now. They won't have a drain field when you're done. You need to replace the drain field. That's the short answer. You need to make them whole.
Okay. Well,
Just-
our preference,
Just like my drive.
our preference is to, yeah, our preference is to hook them up to sewer, but I don't know if that's coming. In the
No.
event that it doesn't come, then we need to repair and fix the drain field.
There you go. There's a good answer.
So, Mr. Trud, Doug and I will continue to work with you. They're in the process now of working on the driveway designs. Once we've got a design ready to go, we'll be back with you again and show you that design so that you're satisfied that what we're going to be putting in place will meet your needs.
Okay, thanks, Scott.
You bet.
Like Sue has a question for us.
Here we go. There we go. Thank you. Yeah, I have a question about funding for the overall transportation plan and concurrency. For some of us who are involved with the deliberations on lifting the urban holding designation, there were serious concerns raised about the adequacy of the funding plan. And subsequently, we've learned that it fell short some 20 to 60 million or more. So I think that, you know, there's a question about whether or not the urban holding should have even been lifted, but it's, you know, water under the bridge, I guess. But, you know, looking at the plans now compared to the previous plans, it's way more elaborate. And I think there were maybe 4 or 5 roundabouts identified previously, and now there's a dozen. So how secure is the funding for this? What is the price tag and how much has been identified?
So previously, those roundabouts, both outside of the interchange and 15th, 29th, and 50th Avenue, were not identified. That doesn't mean that they weren't going to be roundabouts. It just means that we're giving more detail into our plan. The cost of the section in the 20-year capital facilities plan is an estimate. As those projects advance in the funding stage and funding is identified, the projects are designed, our funding scenarios become more clear. The section of 179th Street that we are planning on with the additional roundabouts, additional details have to be evaluated to evaluate the cost of those. But there is an estimate in the capital facilities plan. We're trying to get close to that estimate, but it is just an estimate. The 20-year capital facilities plan is it's not it's an estimation, whereas the 6-year transportation improvement plan is a financially constrained transportation plan. So as projects advance from the 20-year plan to the 6-year plan, those funding scenarios for each project become more clear, and funding is identified to fund those necessary projects.
So is this a 6-year plan?
The project itself, some of the local roads, as I mentioned before, will be built as private development proceeds. So those roads are built by private development. It's not a part of the long-range transportation funding capital facilities plan.
Right. Well, I don't think you answered my question as whether or not these were considered in the estimate of the cost and whether or not there's a deficit in funding right now.
The improvements along 179th Street from northwest 11th Avenue all the way to Northeast 50th Avenue are in the capital facilities plan. They have been in the capital facilities plan since 2020, and the cost will be refined as the design proceeds.
Okay.
Don't see any more virtual hands. I know we do have just a couple of minutes left. So if you do have a last minute question that you would like to ask here, this is the last opportunity. I know that there are some people who are calling in. You can also press star 3 to unmute on the phone. I do see that David has a question. I'm gonna go ahead and call on David next.
Am I unmuted?
Go
Can
ahead.
you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to follow up with Matt. I don't think you answered Sue's question. And my question is, when the council lifted the urban holding by the ordinance in 2020, we'd gone through a huge process and they identified certain funding that was available. Subsequent to that, Public Works identified that the funding was inadequate. Now the plan has more, this particular plan has more in it that you're showing us, but you haven't identified whether or not the council didn't have the money to lift the urban holding when it did. And the concurrency question is what we are asking about, Matt. And I think that you did not answer Sue's question, and I wish you would address that specifically.
So the projects, there are no additional projects being added to the capital facilities plan as part of the 179th Street Access Management and Circulation Plan. Those projects have been in the capital facilities plan. We are identifying intersection type controls along that corridor. As far as those projects that were necessary to remove urban holding, that consisted of projects at 29th Avenue, 50th Avenue, the interchange reconstruction project, meaning the realignment of Delphi Road behind the Chevron station, the 15th Avenue extension, the 11th Avenue bridge, or no, I'm sorry, the 10th Avenue bridge. It included those projects. Those projects have been found to be reasonably funded by the council's action. The reasonably funded situation was not, it did not include Northwest 179th Street from Northwest 11th Avenue to Delphi Road, and it is not now. That was not a concurrency failure. That was not necessary to be reasonably funded to lift urban holding.
I understand that. I'm just saying that subsequent to the council lifting the urban holding, it was reported to the council that the funds, that the money available and the cost of the project was inaccurately reported to the public and to the council, and there was an extreme deficit. So what I'm asking is, has the government found the money between what was wrongly given to us during the 179th Street urban holding overlay and now to make up that deficit? And where did those funds come from? Because concurrency is the issue here.
So that's what concurrency is the issue. We are looking at additional funding sources. I am not inclined. I do not know the specifics as far as the financials, but we are working to fully fund those transportation projects and continue those projects moving forward.
So are you saying that the projects that were identified in order to lift the urban holding are not fully funded now?
I'm not saying that at all.
Okay, because
So what we're actually gonna have to cut our meeting here. We have run out of time, unfortunately. What we can do, David, is reach out to you directly and give you additional information directly. I know we should have your email address since you are registered for this meeting, and we can contact. We'll more than likely our project manager contact you and provide additional details or who the best contact will be. We have, as I mentioned before, we have run out of time. We do want to be considerate of everyone's time. This has been a 2-hour meeting. So we're going to go ahead and end our meeting now. I know that there were several questions that were left unanswered here on the chat. I do have access to them, and I will be reaching out to those who have questions and those questions that were left unanswered. So I do want to thank everyone for attending our open house this evening. I really appreciate it. As I mentioned previously, this recording will be posted on our project website, so you are able to refer to it at a later date. More than likely, I don't believe it'll be up tomorrow. More than likely, it'll be up on Monday. Kaylee also communicated here in our chat that we will provide the PowerPoint presentations. I know it's a little hard to read here on screen, so you'll have access to view our PowerPoint presentations. We'll go ahead and update our contact information on our project websites. And again, we do have that project email address. So if you have just general questions, it doesn't have to be specific to 29th or 50th. We could, anything on 179th, you're more than welcome to use that email address. We'll go ahead and funnel those questions through to the correct contact. But again, thank you all for joining us this evening. I really appreciate your time. Thank you all.